Well, Easter. Why does the mystic celebrate Easter? That was in our reading this morning. It's a big celebration in many faith communities, and it's always an interesting discovery Sunday for us in New Thought communities as we traditionally look at the story in different ways. We look at it from different angles, through different lenses, at different perspectives, if you will. And the Christian faith, of course, it's the entire foundation. It is their big holiday. It's the entire foundation of the faith and the way that it was created. In the study of the science of mind, however, we don't teach that Jesus was the only one. We don't teach that Jesus was the Messiah and the Savior. We teach that Jesus was the fulfillment of the divine potential in all humans and that Christ consciousness that lives within each of us. And this was his teaching. We teach what he taught. We teach what he taught. And it is his life message as well. If we look over the course of his lifetime, I and the Father are one. This and more you shall do also. He's teaching us, isn't he, of the Christ consciousness within us. He was the great example of living in grace, which we've been talking about all year. Now, in the Jewish tradition, we celebrated the Passover on Friday, and that's all a very big part of the Jesus story of the crucifixion, isn't it? Because Jesus was Jewish. He was spoken of as a rabbi. He taught in the temple, in the synagogues. So the Jewish faith tradition is a very important part of that story. And as I said, it's the Passover. And those that joined us on Friday, you know the story of the Pharaoh who decided that the Jewish population was getting a little bit too large in Egypt, and he better just enslave everybody. So he did. And then Aaron and Moses came about and said, yo, Pharaoh, we got to go. We got to go. Just let us go. And Pharaoh goes, nah, I don't think so. And so with little help from God, Aaron and Moses called down some plagues. Took 10 of them, in fact, before Pharaoh finally said, okay, go, leave. But he was a little finicky. He changed his mind one more time, didn't he? But he finally did let them go. And if you've seen the movie, The 10 Commandments, remember that? Charlton Heston played Moses. And you probably know the story pretty well. And it's interesting, this photograph shows us Ernest Holmes on the set of the 10 Commandments. And it's said, he's talking to the director, Cecil B. DeMille, and it's said that he was an advisor. I know Ernest hung out around Hollywood a lot, but they might have been ordering lunch here. I don't know, I wasn't there. But what I want to do today is elevate out of both of these traditions, out of the religiosity of it, if you will. Surprise, right? Surprise. And I want to look at it spiritually, metaphysically, and maybe even humanistically as we look at this time of year. In the past, before Hollywood, before Jesus, before Moses, humankind existed, did we not? Humankind existed. And if we look around us and fast forward to today, you may have noticed on your drive in today a lot of green stuff, a lot of flowers blooming. The sky's pretty blue and bright with sunshine. It's springtime, right? It's springtime. We're out of the doldrums, if you will, of the winter season and the darkness of the winter season. And we're in the springtime and things are alive and there's energy. We feel that energy. We feel that connection with the earth as it is expanding and growing. And we see the little birds and the bunnies and the new birth all around us everywhere. And we feel we are caught up in, as humans, as the oneness, we're caught up in that energy, right? Of springtime. We got a spring in our step, maybe, right? Springtime. If you've ever been moved by a field of wildflowers in Arizona or a hillside, just takes your breath away. You may feel that vibration, that energy of the beauty of that blossoming, of that flowering, of that energy. And so it's in this environment, annual springtime, where we, the human race, humankind, have created and come up with these stories to align us with what's happening, to stories that help us to explain what we're feeling. We're feeling this connection, but we're trying to now explain it in story. And we celebrate this rebirth, the resurrection of life, and coming out of the winter doldrums. It's a joyful time. Now, when I was growing up, about that timeline in that photo, maybe a little older, but I remember my mom's traditions around springtime. You probably had some in your family. We always looked for the first robin. Carrie, you're from Virginia. Did you look for the first robin? That first robin told us that spring had finally sprung. The robins have come back. They're a little robin redbreast. And that was a big day when we saw that robin. And then we always had spring cleaning at our house. Did you all have spring cleaning? Yeah, because we had a coal furnace growing up. And we burned wood and we burned coal, and it created soot and debris and stuff. So we always opened up the house and had to clean everything every spring. So it was spring cleaning time. And then there was always the May 10th. May 10th. You could not go barefooted outside before May 10th, or you were guaranteed to get pneumonia. So we had to keep our shoes on from Labor Day until May 10th. Didn't matter if there's snow on the ground on May 10th, but you could take your shoes off. So those are some of the fun traditions that I grew up with, some of the stories that my mom had to explain what was happening in the springtime, in the change of the seasons. Today, we're continuing our look at the symbology around this the Jesus story. And we talked about in the first week the betrayals of Jesus and the importance of Judas and what all of that meant. And then last week, Reverend Lee talked with us about Palm Sunday and the symbology around Palm Sunday and what was happening there. And today, I want to look at the third day. I want to look at the third day. In my talk, roll away the stone. Roll away the stone. Now, when I say the third day, did anybody remember the Apostles' Creed? Did that just pop in your head? Or am I the only one? Yeah, right. It says on the third, was crucified, dead, and buried, and on the third day he rose from the dead. Now that's ingrained in my cells, I think, because I learned that as a child, and that's what I thought of when I heard that on the third day. So the Bible tells us that Jesus died the same day that he was crucified, the same day he was put on the cross. And if you remember the story, that was surprising to his persecutors because that barbaric torture could last for a week, days to a week. And they were very surprised when it was just a few hours that he had actually died. And so there was a man, a rich man, it says, who named Joseph. And he came and asked for the body. He says, "May I take the body down? He has passed." And they said, "Sure." So he took the body because, again, we're in tradition, right? We're way back in time. We're in the ancient time. And in that time, when people died, they were in a desert, kind of like ours, probably even drier, and it was hot. And so practicality and tradition said, bury that body as quick as you can. And it's only left overnight in really unusual conditions, right? You want to bury it the same day. So when someone would die, they would first confirm death, make sure they were dead. And then they would close the eyes. They would wash the body. And then they would wrap the body in cloth and bind it, sort of mummy-like, but there was a face covering or shroud that they would use. And then the family would carry the body to a tomb. They didn't really bury them underground like we think of today, but they were in a tomb. And we've got a picture of what those look like. These are the limestone tombs in the area around Jerusalem. And usually a family would have its tomb that would have these niches in it. And what they would do is they would take the body in and deposit it on one of the niches. And then for mourning, they sat outside for obvious reasons, and they could mourn from outside. And usually the mourning period was a week. And the family did not leave the home except to go to the tomb to mourn the deceased. That's the only reason they left the home. And so we begin to get an understanding of what was happening now, because Jesus died on the Friday of Passover, which is also then the Friday of the Sabbath in the Jewish tradition. So from sundown until sundown the following day, Saturday, they could not take care of the body or process or anything. So he got him into the tomb. He left. They put a stone in front of it, right? They put a stone in front of it to make sure there was no grave robbers or anything, because they didn't want anybody taking that body. Jesus was a very prominent figure. As Reverend Lee reminded us last week, he was a little bit of a rebel, and they were looking to him as a military solution for their for their struggles, not as a Messiah necessarily. And so they didn't want someone taking that body. And then the Pharisees went to Pilate and said, he was predicting that he was going to raise himself back up in 3 days. We better secure that tomb and put some guards out there, because we wouldn't want that story to get out, right? So he's like, whatever you want to do. And so the Pharisees hired guards, made sure the tomb was sealed, and hung out to make sure that the disciples didn't come back and take the body away and then say, he has risen, right? Prophecy is fulfilled. So all of this is protecting and keeping Jesus in, right? Going to keep everybody out. Going to protect and keep everybody out. The stone was really working for both sides, for the persecutors and the Pharisees, and for the disciples on Jesus' side. How about that? And so it's working double duty. But is it? Is it? When we start to look at these Bible stories, there are 4 of them: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. All 4 Gospels tell us the story of the Crucifixion and the Ascension. These books are written 30 to 90 years after the event. Now, who's been to a high school reunion and shared stories? They were close, but there were differences, right? And that's what we find in these 4 books, is it's close, but differences in the details of what actually happened. In Matthew, he tells us that there was an earthquake on Sunday morning that occurred that caused the stone to be rolled away. I'm sorry, and the angel rolled the stone away in front of the Marys. Now, there were 2 Marys, Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James. And then the angel was sitting up on top of the rock and talked to them. Okay, got that picture? All right. Mark then comes along and says that the stone was already gone, and that the same 2 Marys, when they got there, the angel was inside the tomb. So they had to go inside the tomb to talk to the angel. We get to Luke. Luke said the stone was already gone also, but there were 2 specifically male angels who spoke to the Marys, and now Joanna's with them. So we have 2 Marys and a Joanna. And then finally, John. Now, John, they think, was written up to 90 years after the event occurred. So I don't think he was there. What do you think? I don't think he was there. I think he's hearing all of these stories. And John's work is very eloquent and almost literary, the way it's written. Some very beautiful stories. And so John says it was Mary Magdalene alone who went to the tomb and discovered the stone had been rolled away when she arrived. And she immediately was surprised because she was thinking to herself, how am I going to move this stone? And she gets there and it's gone. And so she goes running back to the disciples and gets Simon and Peter, or sorry, John and Simon, and says, he's gone. Somebody's taken him. The tomb is open. So they go back and they go in. The two guys go in and come out and say, yeah, he's gone. And they go back to talk to the rest of the disciples, leaving Mary there. So she's not quite sure what to do with herself. So she goes inside. And inside, there's two angels who speak to her. So we have 4 variations of the story. And there's a whole talk in there about the Marys, right? We may do that one year too. But what's the message of the stone? I really want to talk about the stone today. Everybody get a stone when you came in? Yeah, we all got a little stone. We will deal with those a little bit later. But I want to talk about the stone. Joseph of Arimathea and the disciples, again, wanted it to protect the body, to keep the tomb raiders out. And then the Pharisees and high priests, they wanted to keep the disciples out and to make sure that they didn't get in there and do something. So it appears, again, the stone was working for both sides to protect the body from things on the outside. Ernest Holmes is our founder and the author of The Science of Mind. In another book that he wrote called Living the Science of Mind, he says the stone is a symbol of the obstruction that confronts us sometimes when we attempt to use our faith for definite purposes. How often do we look at the stone? How often do we think of the tomb with the dead inside? How seldom do we realize that there are no obstructions to divine power? We get obsessed with focusing on the obstruction rather than focusing on what we might prefer instead. Our divine power is the gift of being able to have conscious control over our thoughts and feelings. Our divine power is being able to have conscious control over our thoughts and feelings. It may not feel that way sometimes, right? Particularly in the heat of the moment. Our emotions get the best of us, but in reality, that is our divine powers when we can have that control over our thoughts and emotions. We have the power to transform energy from one plane of consciousness to another, from the invisible to the invisible. And we do that through the power of the one mind. If you're here for meditation this morning, before my coughing fit, we were talking about Cinderella and how the fairy godmother did not go out to get the things that to create out of for the pumpkin, the chariot and the horses and so forth. She didn't go out to get things and come back. She used what was at hand, and she created the chariot from the pumpkin and the horses from the mice. We create from what is available to us in our environment in the moment. What is happening on the inside? And this is a metaphor of the tomb, isn't it? It was what was happening on the inside that was transformative, not what was happening on the outside or what they thought was happening on the outside or what they were fear was going to happen on the outside. It was the actual transformation was happening on the inside of the tomb. And that's our metaphor today. Ernest reminds us that we must place our focus not on the stone, but on our divine power. And that's where the transformation happens within us, is on the inside. We all have our stones and boulders that we deal with, do we not? Sometimes they're large and we can't even see them. We can't even see them. They may be obstructing our heart's desire. Perhaps we've got an inner Pharaoh or maybe an outer one that we're dealing with. Something that's holding us in some sort of lack, limitation, or bondage. Or maybe we've got the plagues that we deal with in the form of everyday challenges. You know, the plagues that came, some of them frogs. If you had a frog in a pond, that's not a big deal, is it? That's a small challenge, perhaps. If it's a bullfrog, it might be a bigger challenge at night because they make a lot of noise. But if you've got millions and billions of frogs everywhere, then it becomes a challenge, doesn't it? If one person has lice, it's a challenge for them. But if a whole community gets lice, it's a challenge for the community, right? So it's the size of the plagues that we face in our life. How are we viewing those? Every day we have the opportunity to roll the stones. The message of this day, this weekend, because it's a holiday weekend, isn't it? With the Friday Passover and the Sunday Easter celebration. It is freedom and transformation. And that's really what I got out of Friday night and this morning doing the work for this talk, is that this weekend is truly about gratitude, freedom, and transforming. And what wonderful way to start our spring is with those ideas and those thoughts. Every day we can remove that obstruction that blocks us and holds us back from experiencing the magnificence of who we are. All it takes is a little bit of faith and a little bit of courage. So let's move into practicing the principles this week and see how we might find some of that faith and some of that courage to roll away the stones of obstruction in our life. You can sign up for Mindful Monday, which is our weekly email that goes out on Monday mornings. And it's a summarization of our talk today, the quotes, and also details on the practicing the principles. You can sign up in the lobby. You can sign up online. And that comes out to you on Monday. Now, Mindful Monday will be going on sabbatical beginning April 25th. So this is the last one for 6 weeks. It'll come out tomorrow. And we'll be back in gear on June. So get a little sabbatical from that as well. Again, you were given white stones this morning. I invite you to take those in your hand if you've got them convenient. I'm going to invite you to carry this little stone with you this week. Carry it in your pocket, carry it in your purse, put it someplace prominent where you see it, where you can see it frequently, and then let it be a reminder to you of your faith and courage to roll away any stones of obstruction that may be in your life. So number one, roll away the stone of perceived limitations. The limitations we face are created like all things are, first in mind and then in form. So we roll them away with the practice of an affirmation, affirming our divine power, our creativity, affirming whatever it is, whatever is the opposite of what the limitation is that you may be facing. Maybe take your stone and when you get home, come up with a word that reminds you of that affirmation and write it on your stone so that it's a visual reminder of the affirmation. It becomes your word of power. Number two, roll away the stone of the belief in necessary illness. Illness is not necessary, but it does happen. I know, I'm experiencing it. I have had seasonal allergies this year, and they have decided to transform themselves into a respiratory infection. Thank you very much. And I bought into the news that it's high pollen season, and my body just cooperated completely with that belief and just helped me out. So here we are. And I look at our beautiful state tree, the Palo Verde, and all those yellow blooms, and I just sneeze. So anyway, our job this week, our principle is to journal about what limiting belief you might hold about the necessity and also the acceptance of illness, because I realize in my own journey with this season, my acceptance of it in some ways. And so I'm working with that. Not only the belief in a necessity of springtime allergies, but my acceptance of that belief. So working on that. I invite you to join me in it. Number three, roll away the stone which says you will never find your soulmate. Relationships are our most fertile ground for growth and expansion. Right, honey? So if you are seeking a partner, resisting seeking a partner, or flat out no, you don't want a partner, does that cover everybody? Or if you have a partner, okay? I'm going to invite you to look deeply at the beliefs around that. Look deeply at your beliefs around that, whatever they might be. Just look at them and meditate and journal on the question of your relationship or your lack of a relationship, and discover if there is fear, limitation, lack, or something else in your decision, whatever that decision may be. The important thing about we beings of choice is that we know why we're making the choice we're making, and that we're not allowing fear to make that choice of living unlimited life. Number 4, roll away the stone that says you're not good enough. Are we ready to let that one go? Yeah. Not smart enough, not thin enough, not healthy enough, not talented enough, not worthy enough, not anything, not enough. You're an individualized expression of God. You are unique in your manifestation of it, whole, perfect, and complete. You are the only expression of the divine, created as you are, and you are the only one that it can express your purpose, whatever it might be it large, medium, small, be it simply to love. It is enough. You are enough. And it's time for us all to show up and live our magnificence and roll away that stone. This week, your practice. Ask a friend or a prayer partner to help you discover through the power of conversation where you may hold on to any not enough beliefs, where I'm not enough. Because our conversation, believe it or not, rats us out on a regular basis for what we're truly believing, does it not? Now, we can't hear it. You know that, right? We can't hear it. But our friends and family and everyone around us can hear it. So if you have a willingness to learn, grow, and listen, ask someone to do this exercise and see what happens. If they are willing to tell you what they hear, you may learn some things. You may discover some boulders that are obstructing your view that you didn't know you had. These springtime messages of the Easter and the Passover, rebirth, resurrection, and freedom are powerful ones. And the power is why they continue century after century after century. It's part of our connection to Mother Earth. It's part of our connection to the oneness that is. It's part of our connection to all of life. We are part of these stories. We are part of this vibration and this energy of springtime. And we are connected in it. We feel the ancestral connection, seasons, all of the things about this time of year. We feel it at a soul deep level. I want to close today by saying, I love you all. I love you very much. I really do. This community is my favorite place in the world to be spending time with all of you. And I am so blessed that your board and each one of you has agreed to allow me some sacred time away. And I know that you love the community and you love each other, and that you will continue to be here to support Reverend Lee and our ministry and each other over the next 6 weeks as we move through this sacred and prayerful time together. As I step away, I know that you will support her with the community with your time, your talent, your treasure, and showing up and volunteering and doing all the things that you do all the time anyway. You got Joe and William and Carl and all of the volunteers, your board of trustees, and Reverend Lee, who will be here in support of you. And I just want to say thank you to everyone. I truly appreciate the time away, and looking forward to stepping into some sacred me time, some self-care time, some retreat time, and some sabbatical time. and coming back refreshed, recharged, energized, and ready for the next 7 years. So look out. Look out. Would you join me for prayer this morning? I'll start with gratitude today because my heart is so full of it. I'm filled with gratitude for life itself and the way that it expresses through me and as me. As I recognize in this moment that God is all that there is. This infinite power and presence, the infinite love and the spirit, the source, the essence, the presence. It doesn't really matter what we call it. I just know that it is the allness that fills up my heart, that fills up my life, that fills up my mind. It is that which is my source and that which has created me in its likeness and image. I am the harmony and balance and joy and peace and prosperity and wisdom and intelligence that God is, for I'm created of it, of that one substance. And as I know and affirm this truth and for and about myself, I know and affirm it about each and every one here today, gathered in this room, gathered online, and anyone listening later to these prayers. For I know we are connected in this unity and in this wholeness and in the one. We are love itself expressing. And so this day I bless this community. I bless Scottsdale Center for Spiritual Living. I know that it is in faith and with great courage that this community continues its mission in the world of teaching these principles, these beautiful, life-enriching, expanding principles of the science of mind, spreading the word, living our lives as this principle, as a demonstration of them to all of those in our lives, and therefore expanding this ministry one person at a time in our conversations, our interactions, our actions in the world, who we be as individuals and as collective consciousness. I know each person is blessed with such love and joy and peace and prosperity as they move forward in their world and their lives, knowing that they are abundantly blessed with all of the good of God circulating to and through them. I bless our volunteers. I bless our board of trustees. And I bless Reverend Lee for agreeing to step forward and to fulfill the role of minister in our community for 6 weeks for us. We are so blessed. We are so blessed. And so it is with great joy and so much more gratitude, so much thanksgiving for all of life unfolding, that I release this into the action of law, the activity of mind, as we affirm this together by saying, and so it is.